Good morning, everyone. I hope you're awake. I would make you stand up and do exercises, but that would take up too much time. Just to add a little bit about myself, I'd like to also say that my mother was Kiwanis Indian community, so I'm also that in addition to Sisseton Wapatun Oyate, where I'm enrolled. And I was born and raised out on the Navajo reservation, so I have three children that are half Navajo and a grandchild. What we're going to do today is I and my colleagues are going to give a little sample of what we do when we go out and visit with tribal councils or tribal investment committees about their portfolio that they have invested with us in trust. And like Sean said earlier, tribes are big investors. They're like institutional trust investors, so their portfolios look a lot like an institutional trust. And what I like to do when I go out and meet with the tribes is I like to start off with a presentation that our executive management has been giving out at NCAI or out at AT&I, National Congress of American Indians, affiliated tribes of the Northwest, sharing information, current information about OST. And one of the big things about OST this year is we're 20 years old. We've been around 20 years. We're celebrating 20 years of lots of hard work, lots of great things, lots of historical events. The other thing that I like to do when I go out is share with the tribes anything that OST has or the Department of Interior has issued recently that is important to Indian country, and I'll hand it out while I'm out there. So what we've handed out to you all in packages is the audit report, the latest OST audit report, which we are particularly proud of because it was one of those things that we were told couldn't be done, which is get a clean audit opinion on the IIM side. And now on the tribal side, the only thing that's holding us up now are beginning balances, which we are chipping away at through the historical settlements that the Obama administration is doing with the tribes. So historical, great thing, clean audit, no internal control comments that are material or significant, huge. And I sit up here and I say huge because in the beginning we were told can't be done, and it's great for Indian country, it's great for the Indian trust funds. The other thing that I handed out is the strategic plan. Yes, there's a strategic plan. It has good things in it about trust funds. We follow it, we read it, we do what's in it, we care about it, so I like to hand that out. The other thing I've handed out is the latest land buyback program status report. It's got good information in it about where the department is on the land buyback program, and I encourage everybody to read the frequently asked questions. We get a lot of questions. Even we, the staff of Interior, go by those frequently asked questions. Now, let me get to my presentation. What I do when I'm out is I just run through some very high-level activities that are going on, and because councils turn over and not a lot of people know about us, I go through a little bit of our history. We were established, OST, the name OST, the oversight functions, were established under the 1994 Management Reform Act, Trust Funds Management Reform Act. The operational functions that are in OST have been around a long time. They came out of BIA. Skeleton, small crew, ever expanding as people were recognizing, Congress and everybody else were finally recognizing what we all knew all along. Very important, need to concentrate on them, need to focus on them and fund them, and the staff grew out of that. We were created for effective management, focused management, efficient management. OST also oversees and coordinates the practices and the management and the discharge of the trust responsibility. And again, it's been 20 years. and we're really happy about that, and we're spending this year celebrating it, focusing on it, and letting everybody know what's been happening these last 20 years that we've been around. I'm not going to read through this. You guys all have the presentation, but we have a mission statement, we have a value statement. We really work on it. We worked on it with our employees, and we really take it to heart. What do? We provide beneficiary services. We support self-determination. When I still worked in the private sector for an accounting firm, and I tell the story, the first thing I was told by Eloise Cobell was, we're here to work ourselves out of a job. And that's true. In the truest, purest sense of it, what we're here to do is enable the tribes to take over their functions. Individuals, we're here to help them manage their land, learn everything they can about their land. So we really take that to heart. Support self-determination. Promote continuous improvement in the delivery of services. And what I always say when people get scared in all the agencies about, oh my God, they're here trying to get us to lose our jobs, because that's what a lot of people think when they see OST pull up to the front door. You guys are here to take our jobs away. You're automating. No, because there is so much that needs to be done in Indian Trust that when you automate a function or you make it more efficient, all you have to do is look around and see there's something else to be done. So I don't think there's ever going to be a reason to let people go, because there's always something else that needs to be done. There's always internal control that needs to be put in place, monitoring that needs to be done, and that's all we're trying to say is get all that manual stuff automated so you can monitor and oversee and look for the problems. We conduct appraisals. We provide records management and litigation services, again, building the efficiencies, and then, most importantly, connecting, communicating with beneficiaries, with Indian country, and communicating with Congress. That's where the funding comes from. That's where the laws are passing, and we've got to clearly communicate with Congress. Our priorities for the 21st century: improving the trust management, enhancing outreach efforts. We outreach in the community. And then, like everybody's been talking about today, financial education, both for the individuals. Sean, who talked to you earlier, in collaboration with First Nations Development, has a wonderful suite of modules for individual financial education on budgeting, on how do you invest, on how do you maintain your credit rating, how do you avoid the payday lenders, which is what we really need to worry about with that land buyback program coming through. We don't want people going to payday lenders. We don't want people cashing their checks out there and losing 15 and 20% of their checks at those payday cash places. And then investment training for the tribal councils, for the tribal employees on what do you do with those reports we're sending you monthly and annually? Are you reading them? Are you going through them? Are you watching them? Because you need to, because you all, individuals and tribal, are the final internal control when we send those reports out. And then facilitating comprehensive probate reform. I'm not going to go through this chart. I just wanted to point out where we are. We're in that bright yellow box, Special Trustee for American Indians. Not going to go through our org chart either, because might make you fall asleep, but I wanted to point out where everybody is. Some of us are on detail to different jobs to help out. You heard Jim is helping the Special Trustee. Doug's moved over to help us in field operations. Field operations, that's us. We even have a mission: serve as the primary point of contact for beneficiaries, both tribal and individual. If there's anything you all need, you contact your fiduciary trust officer for the South, which right now is PJ. I have all 4 of my fiduciary trust officers here for Southwest and Navajo: Liz Sparks, Virginia Moore, Peter Fredericks, John Roach. They are the primary point of contact. If you need help, they'll find it for you. What we do, I'm not going to read through this. You guys can read through this. But we maintain locations. We've got $5 billion in trust. We look for whereabouts unknown, and I like to tell this story because it really bothered me when I heard it, because this person actually ran for president. She said, you know what, I keep moving and they can't find me. Well, why would we be trying to find you? I mean, do you make your mortgage company look for you, your bank look for you, your credit card company look for you? When you move, let us know. You have to let us know. Give us your address so that we can change your address and keep sending you statements. We're partners, we're all stakeholders, we're partners, we're collaborators, let's work together. And we support the buyback program. 20 years of progress, some of the things we've done, the Trust Beneficiary Call Center, it is an awesome thing. Call them, you can find stuff out about anything. They're really good. Streamlining and automating financial education, our fiduciary trust officers. When they came along, first time staff dedicated solely to individuals and tribes for trust, completely dedicated. And then the systems that we have in place now. When I first came on board, we were using paper, we were in the dark ages, we did not have trust systems. TAMS is the BIA system for resource distribution and management. Trust funds accounting system is your accounting system. You can do direct deposit, you can use debit cards, you can schedule checks, you can do all kinds of things, and everybody gets a statement with their assets on it. That's huge. My dad never had that. All of our parents never had that. Now they have it. I won't go through the priorities. You guys can read them. Employee engagement is one for our employees, but really important is maintaining that high level of beneficiary service. Who do you work with? Just to pound it home, you work with your fiduciary trust officer. I'm your regional trust administrator. Everybody has one, all the regions have one, and then your investment officer who you're going to talk with. Investments. Like Sean said, where we invest, bond market, 162A, 25 USC 162A, it's a good place to be. It's a good place for fixed income. It's a good place to know where your tribal budgets, know for your education. It's a good place for that bond market part of your diversified portfolio. We conduct annual administrative and portfolio reviews. We have our own risk management that we have to comply with. It's very robust. It's similar to what the private sector had to go through with Sarbanes-Oxley. We have very robust IT requirements, in many cases more robust than what's in the private sector. And we have a complete independent audit that I handed out, and it's done by the private sector. It's very robust. It adheres with private sector rules and the government rules, which in some cases are more robust. And that's me. At this point, I'm going to turn it on over to your fiduciary trust officer, who is going to drill down a little bit more on what do we look for when we go out and meet with you.
Good morning. I'm Peter Fredericks, fiduciary trust officer for the OST Southwest region in Albuquerque. I'm co-located with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And like Margaret mentioned, we serve as a primary contact for individual Indians and tribal governments regarding their trust funds. We travel and meet, hold outreach with tribes. I work closely together with our investment officer, and we meet with tribes to go over what types of funds we hold in trust for the tribe. John provides a individual portfolio review that focuses in on the performance of the investments and address any related questions. The fiduciary trust officer position was created out of under the 1994 Trust Funds Management Reform Act, and as I mentioned, it serves as a primary contact with individual Indians and tribal governments regarding their trust accounts and trust-related matters. And the FTO provides a broad range of services to individual Indians and tribal beneficiaries. But this presentation here will focus in on the role of the FTO with regard to the management of the investment of tribal trust funds. So as a primary contact for individual and tribal trust funds, the FTO works directly with authorized tribal officials to determine cash disbursement needs and to establish appropriate investment objectives. So, factors to consider when establishing investment objectives. So, before I get into these factors, I think it's good to get a little background on the type of funds we hold in trust for tribes. The most common funds that we hold in trust for tribes are funds that are derived from leasing activities on tribal trust lands. Examples would be grazing leases, rights-of-way income, sale of forest products, sale of minerals. And these funds are held in what we call the proceeds of labor account. They don't have a restriction as to the use of those funds. In fact, also a tribe can have the option to receive those payments directly as opposed to depositing those funds into a tribal account. Other types of funds that we hold in trust are derived from settlements, like land claim settlements, water rights settlements. Those types of funds have governing documents as to how the funds may be used. It may also have a use plan, a settlement agreement. Collectively, those documents are referred to as the governing documents. With that being said, then, that provides kind of a backdrop to these factors that we look at then to determine the investment objective. One thing that's common, what's common about these factors is that they help to inform us as to the timing and disbursement needs from the tribal trust accounts. So the first bullet we're looking at, is there restrictions on the use of the funds, the settlement document, or the use plan? For example, some of the settlement funds may have a restriction against the use of principal and only allow the income earnings to be used for certain purposes. So if we know that, we can invest the principal longer term, right? We won't leave that in a liquid funds, as liquid. We can invest them further out. Some settlements, like water rights settlements especially, may have trigger dates where there's a series of things that have to happen, where there's other parties to this water rights agreement that before the water right settlement actually becomes final. And so it may even prohibit investment of those funds until such time as the settlement is final. So we look to what the particular language is in the settlement agreement. And other items to consider, other factors would be, is there a tribal spending needs that are identified in your tribal budget that the tribe expects to fund from their trust account? And we see that typically with the tribal budget will include language, they'll expand on their programs, and they'll say a certain amount of funds are going to be needed to fund this tribal budget, and we're going to request these funds from, and they will indicate the proceeds of the labor account as an example. And another factor is a trust account expected to fund periodic per capita payments. I see some of my tribes have that situation, or reoccurring debt service, or maybe other types of payments. And lastly, just to reiterate, what we really need to know is how much funds need to stay liquid for imminent investment, or imminent needs, disbursement needs. So that being said, this next slide, we discuss the a sample investment objective letter, and some of the tribal officials here probably recognize this letter I send out to confirm investment objectives each year. Of course, we want to get updates more sooner. You know, if you have come across a disbursement needs, you should communicate that right away to the trust officer. One of the things I want to point out in this letter here, there's really specifically worded language that you should take note of. Funds are invested in a manner consistent with the needs of the individual tribe and in accordance with the Secretary's fiduciary trust responsibility to ensure that tribal trust funds are properly maintained and invested. So how do we do this? In order to do this, we need input from the tribe. We like to actually come out and meet with the tribe and discuss what your plans are for the funds. So each account then has an investment objective based on the timing and expected needs of these funds, and they fall into these three objectives here: liquidity, income, and long-term. So as they're pretty self-explanatory, I think, there, and so I'm not going to get into that too much. And the next paragraph in our letter, some other important items to note that what we're asking is we need your help to determine which objectives best document your plans for these funds. And then we list below the objectives that are assigned to the account. We ask that if you agree with the objectives, to go ahead then and sign this letter, which I'll go to this next page here. And there's a statement where the authorized official would sign affirming that it is agreed that the objectives assigned to the accounts listed above are appropriate. Now, this next little paragraph is something separate from this letter. It's something I wanted just to add in to point out that if the tribe knows the timing and disbursement needs of a particular tribal account, for a particular tribal account, then these details can be added in the form of an addendum. In this example, this is a next example of a tribe that needs $200,000 to fund their operation and maintenance budget every 2 years. In fact, on April 1st, 2016, and every 2 years after that. And then they want the remaining funds to be invested in accordance with the income objective. So in that example, then, we would reference the account number down below there, and there's how the addendum information is worded, which is a great help to the investment officer because they know specifically how much money can be invested for how long. So they can invest that $200,000, for example, for 2 years. And it'll mature in 2 years. It'll be ready on about April 1st. And then they can invest the other funds longer term. The trust officer then therefore likes to meet with the tribe to try to flesh out these kind of details, and we can help word the language as such in the addendum, and that's really helpful. The other important thing to note regarding the management of tribal trust accounts is who is authorized to act on behalf of the tribe with regard to your tribal trust accounts. There's three important things that we're looking to know with regard to the authorization. Who can receive financial information, initiate tribal disbursements, and provide investment instructions. And we have a form that we use, that's a signature form, and it also lists a term of office. So the next slide here, I show us a sample authorization you can use for your resolution. This is a standing resolution that designates officials by their position. And of course, again, it's a sample, but the benefit of a standing resolution like this is that each time there's new council coming into office, you don't have to do a new resolution for your authorization. Rather, we just need to be identified who officials are holding that office and then complete the signature and term of office form. And additional information I wanted just to note is we mail out statements of performance. These are tribal account statements on a monthly and annual basis to the tribes. And we can mail to more than one party, provided we get proper authorization from a tribal official. So if it's all going to the governor and the tribe would like to go to their finance officer or their treasurer, please let us know. We just need written authorization to make that happen. We also offer an internet-based access to your tribal trust accounts to authorized individuals through a system we call StrataWeb. And if we have a StrataWeb access request form that you can request through your local trust officer, this form would need to be authorized by the tribal official indicated in that resolution we talked about earlier. And then our IT staff will set up a user account, and they'll email the access, the account information to log on and how to navigate to the system. And it also includes not just tribal information, but access to tribal account statements, and it's more real-time if you want to have more real-time access. So what happens if a tribe does not respond to requests for investment objectives? And we have that happen, unfortunately, on some occasions. So what we do is we send this letter out, like I just mentioned. It takes into account those factors that we discussed earlier. Whatever information we can get from meetings with the tribe are all taken into consideration in coming up, or determining, I should say, the appropriate investment objective. And ultimately, after the third follow-up contact and we get no response, we'll let the tribe know in our third response that we haven't heard back, and so we've assigned these appropriate investment objectives, as we feel are appropriate to the account. So we're letting the tribe know, these are the investment objectives we're going to operate under, and then of course we hope the tribe would contact us at some point and let us know if there is an upcoming disbursement. The other thing that I want to discuss is the question of, can tribes withdraw funds from trust? And the answer is yes. The 94 Reform Act actually provides the option for tribes to withdraw funds from trust for self-management. These would be settlement type funds. And there's a brochure that discusses and summarizes the fine points on and benefits for withdrawing funds for self-management. It's out on the table out here, so help yourself if you would like that. But when a tribe withdraws the funds from trust, they relinquish, of course, any liability of the federal government, and it also allows the tribe to invest in securities beyond what we're restricted to under the law, the 125 USC 162A, which is fixed income securities backed by the full faith and lending of the U.S. government. So tribes will have a broader array of investments and would have to come up with a sound investment plan to invest under. But if you would like to visit with your particular accounts to see if that's an option for you, please contact your trust officer and we'd be glad to review that with you. Communication is the key. Statements of performance on investment objectives, just summarizing authorization letters, StrataWeb, email, telephone, face-to-face visit. All these are forms of investment training, like was mentioned earlier. We can come out and provide investment training tailored to your particular needs. And also, again, to reiterate, letting us know about any changes of cash flows. And there's my contact information. So, thank you.
Now, Sean, if you, there you are, Sean. If you would, there's some things that very closely interface your presentation. And I'd appreciate it if you'd throw some wisdom in this particular, over several of these slides. One of the things that I'm going to do this morning is, like PJ just got through challenging you to give us some investment information, some objectives that you might have, and who is responsible for your account. We're not being nosy. We're wanting to know this because you can do a better job for your people if we have an idea what objectives you do have. And I guess unlike PJ and Margaret, I'm not Native American, but my friends at Hopi always kidded me that I was part of the Texas clan for the Hopi tribe. So please include me if you will. One of the things I'd like for you to think about is that investments are merely tools to increase your cash. They're not anything that is basically Sean and Zach and Mr. Logan and I like to think that we're really smart and we really have it together, and we've really got these mysterious things that are called investments that nobody else can understand. It's not true. Basically, the only thing that you're doing with your investments is that you are paying for a cash flow that is going to occur later. Now, as Sean indicated, that may be a stock, and it goes up and down like this, or at the other extreme, it may be a government bond, and it goes like this. It may have some little dips, but basically it's pretty stable, and that's going to be important relative to when you get your cash, because it's important for you relative to the programs that you design for your people. These are tools. As Sean indicated, they're bonds, United States government bonds, corporate bonds, high yield bonds, foreign government bonds, stocks, real estate, commodities. Mrs. Clinton invested in some hog futures. I think she invested $1,000. And Sean, how much did she eventually get from it? Something like $100,000. And the gist of that is that's an extremely risky proposition. If you can put some money in and get a whole gob of money, or you can lose a whole gob of money. So at the top, the United States government bonds are the safest. Commodities by far are the riskiest. But it's your choice. How do I know which tools to use? Sean basically covered that. How much do you have to spend? How much do you have to have in return for that cash that you invest? Do you need to withdraw part of your money as time goes on? And this is going to be real important, so pay attention to that. When do you need to withdraw your money? Can you afford for returns to vary over time? Let's say the tribe has a whole gob of money and they really don't need to withdraw part of it for a plan that the tribe may have. Well, maybe you want to look at other options, basically stocks or something where you can afford to absorb the ups and downs. Make sense? On the other hand, if you've got a project that needs constant cash flows, boom, year 1, year 2, year 3, and they darn sure have to be there, it's a different story. So think about that. Can you put it away for a long haul, or do you need something for your tribal program that is constant? Boom, 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 boom. Okay? Some thoughts. OST invests only in Treasury and government agency bonds, usually government agency bonds, because they'll yield you a higher return. These form a pyramid, and guess what we do charge you for managing your money? Zero. Okay? So we're a pretty good deal relative to what we're going to charge you. Now there is a pyramid that I like to use called the investment pyramid, and these alternatives up here are very high risky alternatives. Those are probably commodities, some forms of real estate, and they're way up at the high risk. If you'll see that chart over there on the right, they're high risk. Equity investments are right in the middle, and then basically where we invest for you is right here at the base of that pyramid, and as you can see, that's low risk. Only in fixed income investments, only in governments. We buy and hold by and large for your bonds. We don't trade those bonds over and over and over, and there are very good reasons for that. And we can only go up to 15 years relative to investing your money. We can't go to 30 years. Sean was talking about some 30-year Treasury bonds. We can't do that. Basically, by virtue of our policy, we can't go beyond 15 years. How do bonds work? Again, that means you're lending money to the United States government when you buy a bond. The principal, Sean defined for you. The interest or income, he defined for you. And this is how it works. Let's assume that we purchased a bond for you for $10,000 at 5%. I looked a few minutes ago, and the 10-year Treasury is at 2.01%, so even that's a little higher right now, okay? But basically, right here, we've purchased that bond, that $10,000 bond, at 0 time period, okay? At 6 months, what happens? With most bonds, CMOs are a little different, but for most bonds, you get interest every 6 months until the bond matures. So with that $10,000 bond times 5% times 1/2, you get $250 in interest at 6 months. Again at 1 year, a year and a half, and again at 2 years. And you also, at the end of the 2-year period, you get your original $10,000 back. Okay? Now what Sean was saying is that with a stock, you may invest your $10,000, but it's going to go up and down and up and down. And it's not a function of, well, if I put my money in a stock, is it going to go up and down? You bet. It's always going to go up and down. Some of them, as Sean indicated, are going to go up. Some are go down. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of Walmart stock, so you know where I'm going right now. Now let's see what happens with interest rates and how that affects bond prices. So if interest rates go down, bond prices go up. And Doug asked me the question a few days ago, why is that true? Now let's assume that Mr. Logan is the United States government. He's the Treasury. And let's assume that PJ is wanting to buy a bond because he wants a good deal of safety. And let's assume that Margaret basically has a bond that she's investing in, the same maturity that Mr. Logan has, but let's assume that Mr. Logan, the United States Treasury, is issuing 5% bonds, okay? And PJ, or Margaret, has a bond that's 2%. His is 5%, hers is 2%. Which one would PJ rather have? Would he rather have Mr. Logan's 5% or Margaret's 2%? What would you rather have? 5%, indeed. Okay, so basically, if Margaret wants to sell her bond, hers is 2%, she wants to sell it to PJ, what is she going to have to do relative to the price? Since hers is only 2%, his is 5%, what is she going to have to do to the price to sell it? She's going to have to lower the price in order to sell that bond, okay? Because her bond is only 2%, his is 5%, so she's going to have to lower the price to make it up. On the other hand, let's assume that Mr. Logan, as the Treasury, is issuing, let's say, 1% bonds, and let's assume that PJ now is, he's got a bond at 10%, same kind of bond. What would you rather have, PJ's 10% or Mr. Logan's 1%? Rather have the 10%. So basically, if you go to PJ and you want to buy his bond, what is he going to tell you? Make it worth my time. So he's going to want to increase the price of that bond. So remember, and this is important for you to think about, if interest rates go down, it's a seesaw. Interest rates go down, what happens to bond prices? They go up. And conversely, when interest rates rise, bond prices decline. Make sense? Okay. Any questions about that? That's really important to consider. Now, remember, PJ talked about objectives. Now, this is real important. I want you to think about this because as you're developing projects for your tribe, your nation, your pueblo, basically that objective is real important. So we're not being nosy. We want to know what it is so we can help you. Liquidity means pretty soon are you going to draw the whole thing? Well, it doesn't make much sense for us to invest in a long-term bond if you're going to pull it out in 6 months or a year, okay? So basically, we put it into very short-term bonds. They're going to make sure that you have that money within that year, okay? The second situation would be income. Are you going to take a little bit of that out? Do you have a project that's going to be, you're going to take some out at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. The rest of it, we're going to invest for you, okay? So if you're going to take some of it out, leave the rest of it to invest to earn you some more money, that's called an income objective. Long term, basically, Sean defined that as buy and hold. And basically what that means is that you don't need the money now. You know, it's kind of uncertain when you're going to need it, but it's not sometime soon, okay? So that's a longer term investment, and we're going to invest each of these differently for you when you tell us what your needs are and when you're going to use the money. Now, this is the key, and I'm challenging you at this point. You guys have challenged us for a time. Now I'm challenging you. There are tribes that we do manage money for that, for example, have an education endowment fund. Now, why would you not want to put the investments for an education endowment fund in stocks? Any thoughts?
Too volatile.
I'm sorry?
Too volatile.
Too volatile, indeed. So let's assume that you've got a youngster that wants to go to the University of Arizona, and let's say that it's 2 years off. And let's say that that the tribe has invested that education endowment fund in stocks. And Sean said that stocks are going to do what in value? They go up and down. Well, it's just your luck that basically the stock market has gone down. I'm so sorry, your youngster can't go to college this year until the stock market improves. But with those government bonds, guess what? Those monies are going to be there. Boom, 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 boom. And you can pull those out, and your daughter will be sure to go to college. And what basically these people have done is that they talk to their education department, and they've gotten an idea about, okay, how many kids are going to go to college between now and next year? And then 2 years, and then 3 years. What do? Basically, we invest those according to what you tell us, so that those monies are certain to be there for those youngsters to be able to go to college. So you do an excellent job for your people because those investments are there. There's one pueblo that we manage money for that has an extremely complex environmental reclamation project. And basically it's kind of like building a house, and they draw monies at different time periods in order to fund those particular aspects of that reclamation. So they'll do some work, and then they'll draw some money from us, they'll do some more work, and they'll draw some money from us. So that's another thought. You might have a project like that. Housing projects. You may want to invest your money. You may want to advise us, okay, we want to build $1 million in houses over the next year. We want to build $3 million the next year, the next year, and the next year. Guess what? Basically, we'll invest it so those monies will darn sure be there, and you can use them, and yes, you can get a return on your money as they, as the longer bonds sit there. But basically what happens is that those, if you hold those bonds to maturity, you don't suffer a loss. It doesn't have that up and down effect if you hold those bonds to maturity. And if you give us some idea about what your time period is, then those monies will be there for you to draw. Makes sense? This is extremely important to let you help your people. We have another tribe that we do manage money for, and basically they've got various aspects of medical facilities that they draw occasionally for it. Another is economic development projects, special per capita projects. For example, one has one where they draw every year for minors. And basically what I do is that I build that up until December, and bam, every December they hit that and per cap it to those minors. Loan repayments. We have one Pueblo who actually they had a big loan, and basically what they use their investment monies at OST for is to make payments for that particular loan, to pay it off. So once again, I build it up to the amount that they need for the annual debt service on that bond that they had. One tribe has, I know, has contemplated, and this has been somewhat controversial, but they have contemplated every child that is born, basically what they do is that they set a certain amount of money aside. Every child has a, whatever it is, $1,000, $5,000, whatever, and they're going to put it into an endowment, and then basically the child cannot draw it until he or she is 20-something years old or whatnot. But it builds up, and it can be a very sizable amount when that youngster gets to that age. Well, the old geezers like me are asking, hey, what about me? I'd like for you to invest. No, doesn't work. It has to be the youngsters. But they came up with that project. So far, they haven't done anything with it. But what I'm telling you is go ahead and dream with these monies that you do have, that you can put to work and help your people. And as I look out over the faces, there's several of you that have already put those monies to work and are already doing a great job for your people, and we can help you accomplish those things that you're trying to do. Two questions are that we're going to ask you is, when do you need to withdraw that money? That's important. And how much money are you going to need? And that's something that you and the investment committee, you in the council can debate, dream about, think about. What are those things that your people really need, and these can help. And when we talk to you, we're going to tell you about what rates have done. These, the blue line shows what very, very, very short-term interest rates have done from December of 2005 to December of 2015. And back in 2005 through almost 2008, guess what? Short-term rates were actually higher than long-term rates. The red line shows you what the 10-year Treasury note does. So we're trying to give you an idea about what interest rates are doing. And as you can see, especially since the Great Recession of 2008, what have interest rates done by and large? They've gone down. Okay? This is what we call the yield curve, and this is a presentation of all bonds from 3 months to 30 years. And what we're trying to show you here is last year, what did rates look like? Well, they looked like this blue line. And as you can see, it's a little bit below that red line. Some interest rate changes have happened this year, and the red line is a little above the blue line, okay? Here's a presentation that we will give you, and it shows what the cost of your bonds are. Basically, we paid $6,800,000 for your bonds. When they mature, you're going to get $6,830,000 because we were able to buy some of those bonds at a discount, okay? The market value changes basically hour to hour. So this guy right here is an estimate, that market value, as are the unrealized gains and losses, estimated annual income, what the average weighted coupon is, the yield to maturity, and so forth. In other words, what we're telling you is that we're giving you everything that we can relative to the information you need for your investments, okay? We don't have any secrets to keep from you. If you want to know something else, we'll get it for you. We invest generally in 4 types of bonds, what are called non-callable bonds, and then there are 2 others called callable and mortgage-backed. And basically what happens here is that the government has the option to pay you off early. So let's assume that there's a 5% government bond and all of a sudden the interest rates go down. United States government, they want to go ahead and pay you off because they want to refinance their debt at a much lower rate. So the beauty in the callable bonds and the mortgage-backed bonds is that they make a little bit more money, but there's always the chance that the government's going to be able to pay you off and pay you off early. And as Sean indicated, if that happens, generally interest rates have gone down, so there's a risk that we have to invest your money at a lower rate. But this is one of the other instruments that are the bits of information that we're going to tell you about relative to your account. And then very short term, here is the overnighter rate right here, or the overnighter investment. This is a day-to-day investment that we have with the United States Treasury. It's available day-to-day to you. Now, on this particular situation, you might wonder why we've got $233,000 in a very liquid form. Why have we not invested this amount right here? Remember what PJ said on that objective letter, and remember there was an addendum. And basically on this particular tribe's addendum is, hey, we want to draw $230,000 out at the end of the year, okay? Guess what? Just like the housing project, just like the per cap, whatever it might be, this is the end of the year, and this particular tribe had that money, bam, that they could draw. Other investments don't give you that option. We can do that for you, and we don't charge you for it. There's that economic development draw that this tribe told PJ that they wanted. We were able to invest it, so it was there to help their people. This gives a picture of different types of bonds that we do have in this invested here, what rates they're earning, what maturities they have, and this just gives you a picture show of what it is. So when we come to visit you, we'll give you ideas about anything that you want to see about your bonds, and this is what it's going to look like. Now, one of the presidents of the United States was fond of telling a story, and I'll tell it to you. Basically, there was a child out in the backyard playing, and he came in and he said, Mom, there is a big lion out in the backyard. And she went to the backyard and she looked around and she came back in and she said, Son, she said, that's not a lion. She said, that's just the old dog Rover. Now, you've told me a story. Now, you go upstairs and you pray for forgiveness for telling me a story. So he goes back upstairs. A few minutes later, he comes down. Well, son, did you go upstairs? Yes, Mama. Did you get down on your knees? Yes, Mama. Did you ask God for forgiveness for telling that story? Yes, Mama, I did. She said, well, what did God say? God said it looked like a lion to him, too. So I don't know whether you see these lions that are challenges for you relative to your people. I don't know whether per capitas, where economic development projects, whether it's housing or whatever. But I hope you see these lions, and I hope the Lord takes their lions too. Thank you.